Well, good morning. This is our 60th episode of our morning devotions, and we just want to welcome everyone. And we're in Numbers chapter 13, verses 23 through 33. And just something before I begin, my granddaughter texted me, and she wants to go on or there's a crew from her church that want to go on a mission trip to Rwanda. And those things always take money. So I don't ask for money on here, but I would ask for prayer that the money comes in, all right, and that she's able to go on this trip. Now it's just in the planning stages, uh, but we're looking at like for these Africa trips, they get expensive because you can't. I mean, they generally like fly to London or somewhere in Europe, then down into Africa. But they're estimating between like $4,000 and $4,500 to get on this trip, and anyone that's ever been on a missions trip knows how this route can really shape a young person's life. So, I mean, just something to pray about. So I'm getting that out there. All right, add that to your list. And then you can message me or text me if there's something you want to do, and then I can find out from her how to best. I mean, if you do want to give, I'll figure out from her how to best get the money over where it belongs. All right. So I just want to get that out there. And we're in Numbers chapter 13, verses 23 through 33. That's what I posted. And this section is a famous portion of Scripture. Numbers 13. Everyone should remember this. I entitled this The Irrevocable Failure at Kadesh Barnea. The Irrevocable Failure at Kadesh Barnea. The whole reason of leaving Egypt is to go to the promised land. They're at the southern tip of the promised land, and they choose the spies, two spies from each tribe, or let's see, what is it? No, tribe of Joseph, Manasseh, um, Dan. No, one from each tribe. They're going up, and they go on the other side of Jordan. They go on the east side of Jordan, and then they come down from the north because all of Israel is in the south. So they take the long way around. So when they come into the land, as they're being tracked by these warlords and these walled cities and these little, I call them warlords because they all had their own gods, and all had their own cities, and they were always warring with one another. The Canaanites, they were just always very uncivilized. That's what makes the Philistine Empire so unique, because it's along the Mediterranean Sea, and nobody's really sure where the Philistines came from, because they were structured, they had cities, they were organized, and they were Israel's most formidable foe. But the only thing they talk about here is they say the Anak, there's giants in the land, and the Amalekites and the Amorites dwell there, which compared to the Philistines were just, I mean, they're an enemy, but they're not like the Philistines. The whole idea, and this isn't part of this, but when I was in school, nobody's sure where the Philistines came from and where the Philistines went. And one of my professors suggested that, and I'm just throwing this out here, but the lost city of Atlantis, which would have been an advanced society during those days, that's maybe where the Philistines came from. I mean, there's no basis for that. You can just chuck that in 2 seconds. But the Philistines were kind of an anomaly because they've got giants in the land, they've got walled cities, they have the Amorites, and they have the Amalekites, uh, Hittites, Jebusites. Uh, these are all just Canaanites that Joshua goes in and wipes them all out. They have no power. They're not going to have any power against the Israeli army, because frankly, they just don't have the muscle to take on the Israeli army. Plus, they have the blessing of God. I mean, all of these things are going together. So when Joshua comes into the land, and it's going to be 40 years from this point, he's going to go in there and just wipe them out because he can. All right, and then we see the miracles of God, and the Jordan River, uh, drying up the same way as the Red Sea did. It parted, going in, marching around Jericho, all the things that happen, all these things where Joshua goes in and wipes out all these Canaanites. which are just wicked, wicked people. All right, they are just warring warlords people. Anyway, so here they are. So they go up Transjordan. They go up on the east side of the Jordan. They come down from the north. So the people in what's going to be the promised land doesn't know that these are Israelis. They're disguising themselves, and what they're doing is they're spying. They're spies. They're spying out the land. As soon as I say spying, ask yourself how many lies did they tell on the way down to these people? If somebody said, "Are you an Israeli?" They said, "Yeah, I'm an Israeli. There's 600,000 armed men down on the south border of your property here. We're going to come in and we're going to invade you." No, they didn't say that because spies, by their nature, are deceptive. The very notion that they came in from the north is that they understand that spying is a matter of deceit. Yes, but you know what the law says? You're not supposed to bear witness, false witness. I'm just putting that out there because there's more to this than meets the eye. Does your enemy deserve your law keeping, or do they deserve to be deceived so you can come in and wipe them out? Well, I'm with the latter. Same thing at war here in the United States for our military men. There are certain environments where what the law says about thou shalt not bear false witness um, does not apply. All right, that's what that I'm going to argue is always in the Israeli economy. Anyway, so they're going to come down there, and then they're going to give them a report. They're going to give a report, and 10 of the spies say it's more than we can manage. Let's think about what I just said. You know why they said it's more than we can manage? What did we say earlier in our devotions? Who were these people in their heart of hearts? Who were they? They are slaves in their heart of hearts. They have no iron. They have no courage. They don't have any valor because they're slaves, and they just think slavery is bred into them over generation of generation of generation. So you're sending slaves who are spies and wonder why these men come back and say, no, we can't do it, because in their heart of hearts, they can't do anything. They're just followers. They do what they're told. They don't initiate action. They just follow. That's all it is, except for two, Joshua and Caleb. Joshua and Caleb, these two guys come back and say, no, let's take the land. We can do it. They knew the force of the Israeli army, plus they knew that it was the promise of God. And the reason they're standing on the threshold of entering the promised land is because God brought them there out through the 10 plagues, through the Red Sea, with manna, with the Shekinah glory over the temple, with the presence of God, the visible presence of God in the Holy of Holies, that God is around them in any way, that Moses is the one that speaks mouth to mouth with God. And God says, I'm giving this to you. I'm taking you to the promised land. What we should do is when we come back and we see it, we say, yeah, it's going to be a fight, but I know we can do it because God is with us. That's what this is all about. And that's what Joshua and Caleb do. That's it. They say, yeah, we can do this. And we can do it because of the blessing of God, and we can do it simply because of our military might. I mean, both ways we can do it. So there's no army up in the little stretch which we call the promised land at that time that could take on 600,000 armed men. There's nobody at that time. No way. Matter of fact, it's going to take huge armies from Mesopotamia. It's going to take huge armies from Assyria and Babylon to finally defeat Israel. I mean, the Israeli army now it's decimated because of different reasons and squabbling and fighting between Judah and Israel and Judah and Syria and all of that. I mean, that was all just always a constant mess. But it really takes these huge armies from the east to come and wipe them out, because and so they come back and they say we can't do it, and that's what this story is about. And this chapter leads to following chapters. And one thing, I mean, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but in the chapters to come, I think it's the next chapter. These people, these spies that come down, and then the people that agree with them, yeah, we can't do it. They say because it's gonna put our children at risk. That is what they say. These slaves who were in a land where they were killing all the firstborn sons. are now saying, because they're afraid, they're timid, they're not warriors, even though they could be warriors. They're not. They say, if we go in there, we're going to put our children at risk. And God says, because you're using your children for an excuse to do something I told you to do, you're all going to die in the wilderness. And that's why I said early on, all these people that came out of Egypt, none of them except Joshua and Caleb and everybody under 20 years old ever see the promised land. They all die in the wilderness, because God cannot use people with a timid, slave driven heart to actually go in and occupy the land. And that's when Joshua takes over. Moses is off the scene. The great leader, Moses, he sees the land but is not able to go in. Joshua goes in, a tremendous warrior, and takes another generation who are raised up under Moses and under Joshua, and accomplished great things. They kill Sihon and Og before they even get there. These kings on the east side of Jordan, even before they get there. And so when they get up when they get up to Jericho, they already know that you cannot defeat this Israeli army. I mean, they're already terrified when they get to Jericho. They just don't know how the wall. They figure the wall is going to keep them, and God knocks the wall down. So this is a turning point. And once they deny that we can do it and they accept it, I say it's irrevocable. God seals their doom in the desert. Hypothetically, if they would have all come back and said, yeah, we can do it, then there would have been a plan in place in the text. The whole Old Testament would have been different, where they entered the land not long after leaving Egypt. But instead, they are going to wander in the wilderness for 40 years until all the slave-driven hearts pass away, and they bury them in the sand in the wilderness. And another generation that is not raised in slavery under Moses and Joshua and Caleb, with these men that who have a whole different outlook on what's going on here, stand on the other side of the Jordan River and see afresh and anew, just like the slave-driven hearts saw the Jordan River open, but it didn't change them. The new generation is going to see the Jordan River open. Did I say? Yeah, I mean the Red Sea open. They saw the Red Sea open and walk through the Red Sea on dry land. And the next generation is going to see the Jordan River open, and they're going to walk through, and they're going to gather stones out of the Jordan River, and they're going to stack them up, because people are going to say, well, why is there that stack of stones? And it's going to be a reminder to everyone that God opened the Jordan River and they passed through on dry ground. I mean, it's a new time, but these folks do not have it in them. They just do not have it in them. So let's just read it. I started with verse 23 because when it says it's a land that flows with milk and honey, one of the things that we see, and if anybody's ever seen flannel graph, they see this. They have a staff between a couple of guys, and there's one cluster of grapes hanging on it. I can't imagine this myself. You know, if you get a big cluster of grapes, and you can get a big cluster of grapes, it's hard on the camera here, but this is a cluster of grapes that they're suspending between a rod between two guys on their shoulders. I mean, I can't imagine this. It's huge. It says, and they came out of the brook of Eshcol and cut down from thence a branch with one cluster of grapes. This is verse 23. And they bear it between two upon a staff, and they brought of the pomegranates and of the figs. These guys are loaded for bear when they leave the promised land, because it's got all kinds of great stuff. It is a land that flows with milk and honey. And the place was called the brook Eshcol because of the cluster of grapes which the children of Israel cut down from thence. And they returned from the search of the land after 40 days, and 40 is the day of completion. Rain for 40 days before the earth was covered. Christ showed himself alive 40 days by many infallible proofs after he rose from the grave. Goliath is out there for 40 days before he gets the rock in the head by David in his sling. Christ is 40 days in the wilderness being tempted. It's 40 days. So 40 days is the word. And there's other 40s, but in the Bible, you got the 40 days, and this is enough time for them to get a good picture of what is actually going on up here in the promised land, the land that belongs to Israel, but is occupied by these Canaanite warlords. And they went and came to Moses and Aaron and of the congregation of the children of Israel unto the wilderness of Paran to Kadesh, and brought back word again unto them and unto all the congregation, and showed them the fruit of the land. Wow, look what we got. Everybody must have been like, this is awesome. It's true. This is the land that we're going to occupy. They show him all the good stuff first. And they told him and said, we came into the land whither thou sent us, and surely it floweth with milk and honey, and this is the fruit of it. It's true. It's unbelievable, this beautiful country up there. Just unbelievable. Everybody's going, man, this is great considering we've been living in the wilderness here eating manna every day. Oh, man, this is great. We're not done yet, though. If all the good news comes out first, just hang on. It's not over till it's over, because that's how they do this. He gives them all the good news first. And then he says this, nevertheless. I mean, it's great, but nevertheless, like, where are they going to go if they don't go there? Think about it. This is the destination. If we don't go to the destination, if I'm going to my sons in Michigan and I get there and but I'm not, it's not good enough. Where do I go then? You're at your stop, but you don't want to stop. This is crazy. Where are they going to go if they don't go up in the promised land? They're just going to, the only thing really left to do is wander around, because they don't have another piece of property to attend to that they're going to settle in. I mean, unless they're just going to settle in the wilderness and just eat manna, and that's going to be the history of Israel forever and ever, which of course was not God's promise to Abraham. This is a fulfillment of the promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that you're going to occupy this land. I mean, everybody knows this. He says, nevertheless, the people be strong and dwell in the land, and the cities are walled and very great. And moreover, there are the sons of Anak there, which are giants. They're giants. These men are just huge men. All right. So that's what he's talking about. We're going to have to fight giants. And the Amalekites dwell in the land of the south. The Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites dwell in the mountains. So in the plains of the south, in the mountains, you got all these other warlords. And the Canaanites dwell by the sea and by the coast of the Jordan. So you got the Canaanites over by the Mediterranean. I mean, we have all these different warlords, and they occupy it all these little subdivisions of all these pagan nations. And we have the giants on top of that, and they're all living in walled cities. All right. If you're going to occupy the land, I mean, it's like there's people there. They're going to have to go to war. That's the point. You got to go to war. That's why there's Joshua. That's why we know Joshua's Joshua. He says, and Caleb stilled the people, because everybody's going, oh, no, no, no. And Caleb steps up and says, wait a minute. Wait. Listen, this is really what's going on, Caleb says. And Caleb stilled the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once. No, arm yourselves. Let's go. Let's take it. He says, and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it. You notice there's no prayer here. Often David prays before he goes, but Caleb has assessed this as a military man. He's saying, that's true, all the enemy is up there, but compared to what we have down here, we are well able to win and take it. This is Caleb's assessment. He's a military guy. He knows what they have. He's seen what they have. He says, no, we can go do it. All these schisms, all these tribes, none of them get along. There's nobody going to come to the help. The Jebusites aren't going to come to the help of the Hittites, and the Hittites aren't going to come to the help of the Amorites. I mean, none of this is going to happen. They're all going to just try to stand their ground. So it's not like there's a unity up there. There's not the axis in the north up there that's going to stand against them. That's not what it is. Caleb says, no, we can go. Let's go right now. He said, but the men that went up with him, that is the other 10, after they said that we're well able to do this, we can do this. You need good, sound thinking leadership. And Caleb was a warrior, right? He gave them good counsel, right? He did. He gave them great counsel because he is a warrior, all right? And the other men that stand up, we know their names here of the other tribes, all right? He says, but the men that went up with him said, this is a direct rebuttal of Caleb, a direct rebuttal. But the men that went up with him, 10 other guys said, We be not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we, which is exactly what you'd think from people that have the heart of a slave. They're looking at the enemy and they folded because the enemy is stronger. The enemy for them has always been stronger. The enemy for them has always been Egypt. And under their circumstances, if it were not Moses and the miracles of the Exodus, they were going to be slaves forever because they like slavery. We talked about this. Um, what did you bring us down here just to bury us in the sand when we could have died back in Egypt? They have a heart of slavery, and God is not going to be able to use this. So the rest of these men have a heart of being a slave say to the warrior and say, "No, we can't do it. No, what do you expect?" No, I understand this. I've grown to understand this so much better because 10 of them said, "No, there's no way we could do it. They're stronger than we are," which they weren't. They were frankly not stronger than the Israeli army that's just waiting in the south. He said, and they brought up an evil report of the land. Now they're talking about the adversity that they got to go up against. Except here, it's 10 against 2. Joshua and Caleb against the other 10. And I'm not going to read their names here. I didn't even include it. But these guys all said, no, we can't do it. And I don't know if they did it of their own accord or whether or not they just, were in it because they don't want to side with Joshua and Caleb, whatever. But now they're starting to build a case for why we can't do it. They're going to say, this is why. He says, and they brought up an evil report of the land which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, the land through which we have gone to search it is a land that eateth up the inhabitants thereof. See, they start using euphemisms. Eateth up the land. What does that mean? It's going to eat up the inhabitants. Does that mean? I mean, the land is just going to destroy us. They're appealing to the emotion of the listeners, which are also a bunch of slaves. Eating up the inhabitants thereof, and all the people that we saw in it are men of great stature, which is a lie. Anak is there, but not everybody there is of great stature. It's like we're still the little guys. We're still the little men. We're the ones that have been crushed for 430 years, and everybody else is bigger. And we better not go up there, or we might get beat. So the best thing to do is just take our bat and ball and go home. After everything God told Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, after what Moses did, after what he did for them, getting them out of Egypt, all they can talk about is the fact that it's not in them to do this because of the big men up there, which is not true. There were giants, but not everybody. They're just like everybody else. This is going to be a war that they're not willing to do, even after God said, I'll fight for you. This is rough. He said, and there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which come of the giants, and we were in their own sight as grasshoppers. You see, more euphemisms. We look like insects. Men calling themselves insects. Don't ever do that, especially if God calls you to something. We look like grasshoppers compared to them. No, you didn't. And can you imagine Joshua and Caleb looking at each other saying, how in the world? What in the world? And I'm not going to go on any further. I'm really long on this. So we were in their sight. So that's the end of 13. I went really long today. But we'll look at 14, Lord willing, tomorrow. This is a terrible thing, but I'm quite convinced the reason that they came to these conclusions is because they were slaves. They still were slaves in their heart. And God needs courageous men, valiant for the truth. He needs people that will just trust his word and act on it. All right? Well, these are not the guys. Grown men. Doesn't say how old they are, but they're grown men. They're not kids. See, welcome to the New Testament church when it comes to taking steps of faith for God. And maybe in our own lives when we see it, we say, well, I feel like a grasshopper. Well, you're not. Who is on the Lord's side? Who will serve the king? Who will be his helpers, other lives to bring, right? The whole idea, we are on the Lord's side, right? That's what this is all about. Now, that's a tough song to sing unless you're on the Lord's side, right? Okay, really late. Lord bless you. And Lord willing, I'll see you all tomorrow. All right? Okay, and we just finished up our 60th morning devotion, which is, I mean, it all adds up, doesn't it? I trust that these things are beneficial to you, that it's having an impact on your soul and your walk with the Lord. But we just, that's the work of the Spirit through the Word. Lord bless you. We'll see you. Bye.